Jessica Berman, Commissioner of the NWSL. Thank you so much for joining us here at WRAL. First, what brings you to Raleigh? What brings you to North Carolina? And this is part of your travels throughout the league, right?
Since I've been commissioner, I travel to every market every season, and part of that is just wanting to better understand the community, the team, all the key stakeholders. Later today, I'm meeting with the players, the technical staff, the business operations team, and then meeting with anyone else that might be really an important constituent for the club.
And since you took over, the league has tremendous growth, right? Not only an expansion, going to be at 16 teams starting next year, but record transfer fees. We just saw Jaden Shaw transferred from the Courage to Gotham FC. What has kind of fueled this growth, the new TV deal? What has kind of fueled all this growth? And certainly we've seen women's sports in general experiencing tremendous growth.
I think the short answer is investment. And it turns out if you build it, they will come. But the longer answer and the more important answer is that this sport has been, especially for women, the best in the world in the US for decades. And so this could have happened a long time ago, long before I was here, but I'm fortunate to have a group of investors who believe in our long-term vision to be the best league in the world, and a group of media partners and sponsors who believe in this investment as a driver for their business goals. And so with all those resources, we've been able to actually deliver for the players the kind of training environments and playing environments that they deserve as top professional athletes in the world.
How does that growth, impact the Courage? And we're talking about a league that has done away with a draft, done away with trades without the players' consent. But we're in Raleigh. We're not in New York. We're not in LA. How does this growth impact a franchise or a club like the Courage?
Well, it creates a forcing function for teams to make sure, number one, they have a strong culture. Number two, that they understand and know their value proposition to be able to attract, retain, and develop top talent. And so what we've seen is that our teams are rising to the occasion. And actually, you don't need to be New York or in LA to be competitive. In fact, some of our more mid-sized markets are ones that are really thriving, and players and technical staff and business operations staff make choices about where they want to live, work, and play based on a variety of factors. And so we're excited about the healthy competition that exists among our teams, in part because this sport is different from every other sport. Unlike the NBA, the NHL, the NFL, Major League Baseball, we compete in a global labor market for talent. And so we're not just competing within our league. I think as importantly, we're competing with clubs from around the world. And so our goal to be the best league in the world requires that we provide the best environments.
I certainly want to ask you about some of that competition with the European leagues. But sticking with the Courage, their stadium holds 10,000 fans. There are many teams drawing 16, 17,000 fans in your league right now. I know the ownership would like to get to a downtown stadium. You've certainly seen stadiums in other cities. What does the Courage need to do to grow their fan base, to become more impactful here? Obviously, we have strong college programs, a strong women's soccer scene here in Raleigh. What would you like to see the Courage do?
I think as a general matter, what we're seeing across all of our clubs, in particular because of the changes we've made and because of the investment that's happening around the league, is that our clubs are examining the foundations of their business. And when you boil it down to the basics in any sport, the number one most important building block is infrastructure. So you look at your training facility and you look at your stadium and you ask yourself, is that going to set you up for success? And so I think in every single market, we're going to see iterations. And obviously Kansas City, which is not New York and LA, was the first. They built the first purpose-built stadium for women in the world, and the first sort of multi-purpose training facility that is an elite environment and state of the art. And so we're seeing other clubs replicate that. And particularly when you look at the league's decisions around expansion, ensuring that those clubs are helping us to raise the bar. We see in Denver and Boston that they are building their own stadiums and they are building state-of-the-art training facilities.
We hear commissioners in many sports talk about how important it is to have a new stadium every decade or 2 decades or whatever the case may be. As the commissioner, how much do you weigh in on those decisions? How much do you help the ownership of the Courage try to get the ball moving?
I think it's one of the single most important things that I could spend my time on, which is to support our club owners' efforts, particularly where there's an interest and a desire to do the work and to figure out how to really get the club to the next level. And as you just mentioned, these are things that exist in men's sports for 50 years. It's only new to women's sports. And so you ask yourself, like, why is it now that only in the last 3 years has women's professional soccer been put on the map? It's because we are now applying some of those best practices that exist in men's sports, which are not that novel and are pretty simple, but hard to do. And we have a lot of lost ground to make up. And I think there's a sense of urgency around our league and around our boardroom to make sure that we make the investments to be the best league in the world.
I want to ask you about Sean Nahas. There was a firing here in the middle of the season, sort of strangely timed, I think, to some fans. Given what the team said, did the league investigate that at all? How involved is the league office in looking at any issues that might come up? They talked about a perceived lack of fit and culture issues. Is that anything that the league would get involved in looking at, or were you asked to investigate it all by the players or the Players Association?
I mean, I think all of our clubs lean on the league's subject matter expertise to help them to evaluate the decisions that they're making around the players that ensure that those players are set up for success. And most of those decisions are driven by performance and making sure that the players are in a position to be developed and competing and aligning with the club's values and what they think is best for the team. And we are always a resource for them. And one of the investments that we've made recently at the league office is really building a center of excellence for our clubs to be able to know what great looks like and give them optionality when they're evaluating the next steps of their planning cycle around the training environment. And that applies to technical staff, that applies to business staff. And, those resources are always there. So, the league is there as a positive force to ensure that we're a force multiplier to helping support our clubs in whatever decisions they want to make.
Obviously, the Courage brought in Lauren Holiday, huge name in soccer. They brought in a new technical director. They're fighting for a playoff spot. What do you think of the direction of that franchise?
Listen, I think we're watching them right now compete for a playoff spot, and that group of teams that are the bottom sort of third of the top 8 and the teams that are just below the number 8 line, they're going to be competing hard. I think these next 7 weeks of our season are going to be incredible. We're going to see a lot of upsets. I think we fondly call it NWSL After Dark because crazy things happen at night. But crazy things happen at the end of games. And, you have players on this team who are really tested and have the resilience to really fight, especially at the end. And I think human nature in sports, like, these are the things that make fans show up. These are the things that make people want to invest their time and money in the team. You look at Kaylee Kurtz, I believe she has broken and is continuing to break records in our league for being an Iron Woman. And you have Denise O'Sullivan, who's one of the longstanding captains in our league. And when you have leadership like that on a team, I think you can't count them out. So hopefully the city of Raleigh and Cary and the whole triangle is behind this team and is going to be there to give them that extra energy to show up for their games.
You mentioned some of the players. We're seeing players moving not only within the league with like Jaden Shaw, but moving out of the league. And you mentioned the competition with those European leagues. We've seen American stars like Alyssa Thompson and Naomi Girma, Kat Macario, and even, former Courage MVP here in Caroline move to those leagues. How much of that is a focus of you, a focus of the league, trying to retain as much talent as you can while knowing you are in a global market for these soccer stars?
I mean, yes, and as we say, both and. I think you have to start with a recognition that we're part of a global labor market for talent, and that moving between clubs and leagues is normal in the sport of soccer, which is not something that American sports fans particularly appreciate or understand. But when we list those players who have left, I think we also have to acknowledge and list the players who have either come back or have decided to join the league. When you talk about Katarina Macario or Alyssa Thompson, you can also point to Mia Fischel, who just came back to the league. And I think you're going to see more of those. You have Jackie Ovale, who just came into Orlando, and she could have gone anywhere in the world, and she chose to come to the NWSL. And so when you see those kinds of things happening, you have to sort of take a step back and evaluate it, not just in isolation by one player or another player, but more holistically over time. And these are things, yes, that the league office, we are tracking very closely. trying to identify trends, trying to identify the places where we feel like we need to be better, because yes, it is our priority to attract, retain, and develop top talent.
I know salary cap has come up as one way, removing a salary cap has come up as one way to kind of retain this talent or attract new talent. Again, I'll look at it from a Raleigh perspective. I don't know, certainly the Angel City team is valued much more highly than this team. Do you worry about competitive balance in any of those decisions when you've got to weigh things like trying to attract more talent, but do you worry about competitive balance and other issues like that?
I would say we value competitive balance. And I think if you look across the world, our league is by far the most competitive league in the world. And I think that is something that a player values, meaning they want to play in games where they're going to compete against competition where the game is close and you don't know who's going to win before the game starts. There is no other league that a player would be attracted to. So because of that, and because we value that, we will always prioritize it and make sure that we're paying attention to how things are trending and if there are reasons to be concerned. I think as we look at it today, there is incredible parity that exists at various places in the table. And again, so long as when a team and their fans are starting the season and don't already know how the season is going to end up, then you're providing a fair competition. And we're really proud of that. And we continue to make the decisions from a policy standpoint that cultivate that outcome.
Which is a problem in the European leagues, right? They have some dominant teams that
we don't want a league where there are 8-0 games or that there are only certain games that matter. All of our games matter, and every single week is competitive. And one of my favorite graphics on social is where you can see the tracking of the teams in the table moving up and down throughout the season, and you see how everybody's moving around. It kind of looks like a video game. But I just think it's a really fun illustration of the way it is for our players when they're going to compete in every single game.
Let me close with this one. Obviously, tremendous growth. We talked about that already. How do you think that will help the local markets? How will it help each individual franchise get better and better as the league continues to get bigger, get more exposure on television, get more media exposure, the players get more attention, all that?
I mean, I think, as I said earlier, as it relates to expansion, when we make an expansion decision, we expect that team to help us to raise the bar. So they should be showing all of us what is possible when you have the benefit of starting with a clean slate. And not to say it's not hard to launch an expansion team, but they get to write their future and they don't have to worry about history or anything that they are inheriting. And so with that, we believe that expansion really does that, but it also allows us to have a stronger and more comprehensive footprint across our country. And when you look at the business side of sports, we know that media is the single most important driver. So if we can have more presence across large DMAs, if we can have more people who have an opportunity to be exposed to the NWSL, that will help the rising tide lift all boats.
Jessica Berman, NWSL Commissioner, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.